In this episode, my friend Kayur Shah sits down with me and he shares with us his experience from his initial exposure to the infinite banking concept to becoming his own banker and then on to becoming an authorized NNI practitioner. I had fun and I hope you enjoy listening. Thank you. Welcome to the Banking with Life podcast. I'm your host, James Neathery, and I have in the studio today my friend Kayur Shah. He came in from... Can I tell him where you're from?
Yes, you can.
All right. He's from New Mexico, right? And, of course, he has family here in the Metroplex. And so while he was here, he was gracious enough to set aside some time to come in and sit down and podcast with me. And I appreciate that, Kayur. We've known each other for about, I guess, 5.5 years or so. And but I'll let him tell his story from how he was first exposed to the infinite banking concept, and we'll just come forward and bring it up to date. And, I appreciate you listening. Thanks, Kayur. How are you today, sir?
Doing well, James, and thanks for having me today. I really appreciate you having me here, and I'm excited to talk about all the things that have happened to me since the last 5.5 years, considering IBC, and it's been a great ride. So thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming. Time flies, doesn't it?
It does. It does. You warned me when we first started talking all those years ago that you're going to get 4, 5, 10 years in this, and it's going to fly by real quick.
It does. So I remember, and I was thinking about this driving in, looking forward to seeing you and sitting down with you. I remember the first time, and my memory could be a little off, but I don't think so. I was driving home from the office, so it was in the evening, and we had a conversation, over the phone, and I. Of course, you're an engineer, right, which is good, but very analytical. And I just remember that it was like you pretty much had to read the book before we were going to have another conversation. Is that? Yeah.
I mean, I had done a lot of research online. At that time, there wasn't as much content on YouTube and stuff as there is today. And so I was trying to put the pieces and parts together, and you kind of recognize that I had the parts and pieces, but not necessarily the overall picture. So you told me basically, go get a book and read it and call me back.
Did that offend you?
No. It was great. I needed it. It was just at the time, the easiest medium to me to consume was social media and YouTube and stuff. So I really needed to go and read the book. It was a good thing.
Yeah. So is that how you became aware of it?
No. So I think last time I was here on your podcast, we kind of discussed that a little bit. I was at that time doing a lot of real estate investing and whatnot and developments and things, and I was looking for better ways to finance projects and things, and the algorithm found me and put me on IBC because that's the kind of stuff I was searching for, and I went down that rabbit hole, and when I started talking to local agents and then whoever I found online, and so it was a long journey to actually find a good fit.
Yeah, I should mention that because you became a client. And you've been on the podcast. I don't know what episode. We'll put that episode in the notes. And that was several years ago, wasn't it?
That was, yes. It was probably one of the first few episodes of your podcast. Okay.
And so that's what he's referring to. So he came on as a client, and now he's an agent and an NNI practitioner. But I don't want to get ahead. So, you're in real estate investing, and I know you do work with your dad too, which that was very impressive. I think it's very cool that if you can work with your family,
yes.
your parents or your children, and I mean, you can't get that kind of experience anywhere else. That's very valuable, I think. So you're an investor and looking at better ways to finance things, and it just the infinite banking or banking with life or the infinite banking concept or infinite banking, whatever, those algorithms just kept throwing videos in front of you.
Right.
And intrigued enough to reach out and call different people or what?
Yeah, I mean, at first, I just thought it was kind of some, scam gimmicky thing that, Google found me and now they're just giving me all these ads, right?
Yeah. Right.
Because, I think I talked about last time too, is like my first experience with somebody trying to explain to me, not necessarily banking, but just life insurance was a very negative experience. And so I stayed away from those types of products and things. And
yeah. I wonder how many people in general have a really positive experience. I guess the people who buy life insurance, they have a positive experience or they wouldn't do it. But you hear a lot of that. I mean, there's a stigma with life insurance, and a lot of 1950s sales practices still go on in the big wide world too, which is not necessarily positive.
Right.
So you go down the rabbit hole, and then you wind up calling around, or did you just?
Yeah. So like I said, first I started, I get a little bit armed a little bit of knowledge. That's probably dangerous, right? Just to know enough to kind of get into this world. Start talking to local agents in my area, and I realized that what I was finding and learning was not what they were trying to match me up with, right?
Right.
And so that wasn't a good fit. And I realized, I needed somebody who could help me, not just try to give me off-the-shelf products they give to everybody else and whatnot. And so I started calling around all the people I saw content online, which of course yours is one of them. And that was kind of an interesting experience too, right? And I got 10 different ways to skin a cat that way as well.
Right. So you're not, you're just trying to find out and you're trying to learn, and then you hear all this different stuff. I mean, that's a very common experience, there's in the content online available today, compared to 5 or 6 years ago, and then even compared to 10 or 15 years ago. I mean, the further back you go, the less and less content was available, and the fewer and fewer people you had,
right,
the opportunity to talk with. But, I remember we had several conversations, and a lot of it, I don't want to say a lot of it, but we did have some lengthy conversations on structure.
Yes.
Back at that time.
And that's where I got caught up a lot of it. Some of the noise at the time was okay. I understood the concept very well. I knew it was going to benefit me.
Yeah.
Then it got to going, okay, how am I going to actually implement this? How am I actually going to, make this happen and put together? And that's where I got down the rabbit hole of all these, different ways to design policies and things. And being an amateur at the time, a layman, I didn't know what I didn't know. So I just kept asking questions and trying to figure it out.
Yeah. So you became a client because, you bought policies, or, you started with one, then you've been expanding ever since properly. And somewhere along the way, because you're, what do you, just tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do? Can we talk about that? I mean, I don't want to be censored by the.
No, you're fine. So prior, like you mentioned, I'm now an agent, but prior to that, and I still do it, is I've had 20 years working for the Department of Defense in the defense industry. And I'm in charge of a division within our R&D testing evaluation group at the Defense Threat Reduction Agency. And so we're a DoD agency, and our mission is to counter the threats of weapons of mass destruction. And so
we've had a lot of conversations about that too,
which is really great because that background has really translated well as far as in this banking and insurance world. It's really, I lead a big group of people to solve real world problems, and I control a lot of government assets. Over the history of my career, probably over billions of dollars, and lots of hardware and resources. But the real value that I got from my current profession is strategic thinking, right? And, what we have is a lot of times we call no-fail missions, right?
It's what?
No-fail missions.
Oh.
The consequence is too great, or the cost is too great to where we
Wait. The DOD and a no-fail mission. Okay.
Yeah. But that's the way I train my mind, right? And so.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, if you fail, either the implications are great as far as the resources wasted or some sort of threat we're trying to mitigate and whatnot. And bringing that type of thinking to other people now in their policies and their structures for banking systems, to them, their individual financial construct is a no-fail mission, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's how they're going to retire. It's how they're going to do things. So bring that same type of thinking and long-term planning, I think, has been beneficial on both sides.
No question. No question. I like that. So it does. I could see how that translates well. I didn't even really think about that, but also I've never thought about a no-fail mission with Department of Defense.
Yeah.
So you've 20 years and you still do that.
I still do that.
And all right. And then, you embrace the idea of becoming your own banker, solving the banking function at the you and me level, and doing a good job, and I'm not patronizing you just because you're here and who you are. I mean, you're doing a good job, and I appreciate you leading the way for you and your family and others. So, and I really feel like that's a natural progression. Some people want to become an agent. Some people should, and others maybe not. How long was it between you practicing the infinite banking concept, buying policies and and maybe we can get into the use and what you do with them later
Sure.
if you wish. But what day did you wake up and say, I want to become a life insurance agent?
Well, that's a good story. I think that I started from where I started 5 years ago to where I am today, completely different mindset with the concept, right? Like everybody, I think I started off a little skeptical, focusing on the wrong things, rates of return and going cash on cash and all these little things that I no longer care about, When I started really finding that the intangibles, I like the talks you do about the seen and the unseen. When I started getting more and more into that and started learning, wow, there's a lot of value here that you can't really put on a piece of paper and illustrate and things, I knew that this is a gold mine. And I started using it for my own personal life. And it was really, really creating opportunities for me, a lot of advantages for me. So I want to get my friends and family involved, obviously, right? And so a couple of years, I kept telling them, you guys got to check this out. You got to check this out. This is really good stuff. But like I told you, there was nobody locally in my area who was, qualified or capable to kind of.
There wasn't. There is now.
There is now. If you look on the practitioner, I think there's one person who lives in New Mexico, and that's me.
One person, one practitioner in New Mexico, and here he is, live and in person.
Right.
I feel honored.
So, for me, when I was searching out knowledge, I took the leap of faith. I called you, and we talked for a long time, and I didn't really know you at the time. But
you paid a lot of premium, but you didn't know me.
Yeah. But I got to know you, right? And I trusted you, and I liked your way we think. I think it aligns very well. So I was telling my friends and family, you need to call James. You need to get this going. They weren't as adventurous. Say, okay, let's just go out there and talk to some stranger at the time. And and so I said, the only way to get my people across the finish line is if I do it myself, right? And so I started off as just I want to take care of my family and friends, and then from there, it's actually flourished into a viable endeavor here. People keep calling me. I don't even do any advertising or any marketing. People keep calling me.
Yeah. That's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then legitimately you're helping people?
Yeah.
And what's that worth?
Yeah, this can't put a dollar figure on that one.
You can't. No, that's very cool. And so how long was that? Do you know? Do you remember?
About 2 or 3 years into practicing.
Okay,
IBC.
So you've been an agent for about 2.5, 3 years?
About 2 years, yeah.
About 2 years?
About 2 years.
And that was part of I remember the conversations and it's like, well, if you want to do this, and I'm just sharing my thoughts and my experience and my opinions. And, you got licensed, and then there's a bit of mentorship and, then participating in the Nelson Nash Institute. You was at a think tank last year, right?
Yeah, the think tank was a great experience. I liked going out there and meeting all the rest of the people in the community and hearing what they have to say. It was a really good event.
Yeah, I think the one before that was virtual, I think. So about 2.5 years, 3 years into it, then you decided, to bring them across the finish line, the people you care about. We didn't turn anyone away. If you send them to us, we try to take care of them. But, when people know you, it is different. There's no question. And, we can't help everyone. There's just not enough time or, not enough of us to go around. So I love the idea that I think that really makes for some of the better practitioners whenever you start as a client. And because it is a bit of a process of time, we're just buying life insurance until, we start applying it, all right, and taking advantages of the characteristics that life insurance has and integrating it into whatever it is you're doing, whether it's real estate, cars, or whatever. But once you do that, then the mind continues to expand, and it's truly better than you think.
Yes.
But it does take a little bit of time. And I'm a slow learner, and it's just a different timeline for everyone. But I think that whenever you start on yourself, and it makes sense to you, and you can talk about it, and you can convey the idea of becoming your own banker, and people listen, and it helps if they care about you or they trust you and like you. We all want to help the people that we love and care about, no matter what it is. So I'm just saying that I believe that you're an ideal practitioner, in my opinion. So you're able, capable, you're confident, competent, then you do it yourself, actually do it beyond paying a premium, spent the time learning on yourself, and then spent the time learning, and you're still continuing learning the life insurance business and life insurance, contract structure and all of that, and leading the way. I like that. I admire that a lot. And I think that is, like I said previously, the way, a very natural way to become a practitioner. Right?
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate all the mentorship time you spent me actually getting me to that point where I feel confident I'm able to help others. That was...
Yeah, you're welcome. And so what if, what you want to share what you have done with your personal policies, or, you want to share what you're doing with other people, or both, or...
Yeah, we can talk about a few of those things. Like I said earlier, I was probably focusing on the wrong parts of the IBC, when I first get into it, but now I see the real power of the intangibles, the liquidity and control, opportunity cost reduction. Mm-hmm. And so what I really enjoyed is how it's really changed my paradigm, my outlook on how I operate my personal finances and whatnot. And so...
were you a market guy prior to that? I know in real estate, but...
Not... Probably actually after that I got a little more into it, but at that time I was not.
Yeah.
I had to work, qualified plans and whatnot, and so that's where I kind of...
Well, I remember early on when we were talking, I was camping with some friends, and you sent me a bunch of illustrations that other people had sent you, and then we had a conversation after that, and if I remember correctly, they were all skinny base. That was the whole promotion, was like the least amount of base premium possible, as much PUA as possible. And we had several conversations of, what that looked like in the future. It's not good, bad, or indifferent. Well, it is what it is, but is that some of the noise you're...
Yeah, I was going to hope to talk about it too as well. I experienced a lot of noise that caused a lot of confusion for me. I hope that we can help others avoid some of that experience that I had. I think that series, 7-part series that Ryan Griggs did on the mechanics of insurance, that was really, really well done, really superb work. And had that been around when I was first starting, I think that would have been a good tool for me to kind of reference and look at things. And I think it would help. It's going to help a lot of people.
I got you.
And so, like you said, they were all skinny, kind of, small base policies, and the short-term thinking, let's get cash on cash really quickly, and those kinds of ideas. And, it just didn't sit right with me. I was like, okay, I don't know the insurance world at that time, but, my gut instinct was something too good to be true here. And so that's why I like talking to you, because you actually took the time to just educate me and teach me instead of trying to sell me from some sort of illustration, and I don't like that, that methodology, because I think it creates dependency, right?
Yep.
If you're always dependent upon the agent to kind of manage and do things for you, you never know yourself how to manage these things properly. It's going to lead to a bad outcome. And I saw that personally with my father. After I became an agent, I saw some of the stuff he'd been doing for over the years, and wow, that stuff went south really quickly. And he had no clue. He had no idea that was happening in the background.
Right. He was, working with somebody that he liked and trusted, and was dependent upon them to do what he expected them to do, and they know what they know, and he does what he does and knows what he knows. But then when you come in from, an outside looking in and have some knowledge on what goes on in the big wide world of finance, and it's a whole new paradigm. We can look at this pad, I see it from my perspective. You see it from your perspective. It's the same pad, but we have a different perspective.
Right.
And so you've done some work with your dad then too, right?
Yeah. Trying to help manage and fix some of the things that went on his, he did a lot of work with this individual for many years, insurance products, annuity products, qualified products. And so my dad has a complicated setup here.
Some things that needed to be corrected, and you were able to help him through that.
Yeah, but going back to that noise, everything that I think Ryan talked about in that series happened to me.
Yeah.
I was giving illustrations that were incomplete, just a couple of pages just to show.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I was given illustrations that had, fragile designs that couldn't possibly be paid for that amount of time. And it said it in the illustration itself, and you pointed that out to me, right? And that really opened my eyes.
Yeah, I remember that one conversation. I'm like, look, the life insurance company even bolded this content right here. The verbiage is in bold. Surely, the agent can read, but they never pointed that part out to you.
Right.
Ever.
And it wasn't mentioned that some of the guarantees or what you can and can't do to the policy change over time in that setup. Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, well, it starts off looking, my gut feeling started, yes, this is a little bit too good to be true here. And I got to say, that's pretty much a red flag. If you're looking at it, it's illegal anyway for an agent or advisor to use one page out of an illustration. I mean, it's in the exam whenever you took your life insurance exam. You can't do that. Right.
Why not? Because it's not complete. So if you get, an illustration 1 page or 2 pages, that should just be a red flag. You want the whole, if you're going to get an illustration, get the whole illustration. Anyway, so.
Yeah, so then I realized that what these other individuals were doing didn't align with me strategically, right? Long-term thinking and whatnot. So that's what really, I knew that James knew what he was talking about. I trust what his opinion is. And we got to really talking about the proper structure and proper designs and proper use of this case. So that was really beneficial to me. Yeah,
and why? What is proper structure? That is thrown out in the big footprint of infinite banking, properly structured. Well, fundamentally, at the very elementary level, it's like there's more premium allocated to the PUA compared to the base. Okay. Well, once you get past that, it's how old are you?
Right.
What is your income? What is your cash flow? What is your debt service? How old you are. Your age informs, your duration. We all only have, one life, and it's not like we're going to get your father's age and all of a sudden not need capital,
Right.
So I'm just saying properly structured is more than just a percentage weight to a base premium or a PUA premium. Properly structured is completely dependent upon what the client is doing, where they're at, where they want to go, their timeline, their age, their ability to pay a premium, the duration of that premium, and then putting that together in a fundamental, basic, solid way that won't blow up in the future, right, knowing that the future is unknown.
So in that, one of your previous podcast guests, I think Mike Rivas, liked what he said about that, his banking system, his policies, that's where he wants the least amount of risk. He wants to accumulate capital and then deploy it strategically. That may have more risk, but he's doing that knowingly and informed, right? And I think that's part of the getting correct structure, right? Yeah. Making sure that it stands the test of time and that this is the least amount of risk. This is your foundational structure.
Yep. I love it. And I say it all the time or repeat it all the time whenever he said I'm the worst salesman in the world. I love that. I'm like, thank you. So.
I enjoyed that. I felt like you were not selling me. I felt like you were just teaching me, and I appreciated that more than somebody trying to sell me something.
Yeah, sure. Well, I appreciate you saying that. And so the mechanic series that Ryan Griggs did helped you a lot.
Well, now that it's available, I said, wow, I wish that was around 5 years ago. I've had some of my clients even go look at it and they say, yeah, that's really great information. And we talked about these things, but having a place to go back and relook at it was really beneficial to them.
Yeah. So when you talk to your friends, are they pretty skeptical?
So I think when I first started this 5 years ago, a lot of people were skeptical and they're kind of, what are you doing? This sounds weird. And I'll talk about some examples there. But now, all of a sudden, within this last year, I've seen a flip. I think the word is getting out and people are getting more smart on this stuff and people are getting more educated and knowledgeable and they're seeking me out now. They're seeking this knowledge out.
Yeah. Are you more confident?
I am. I'm way more confident just by using this and practicing it. Every time I use it, it's gotten better and better.
Yeah. So it's worked out like you expected, or?
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, now I value more the intangible stuff you can't really see in an illustration.
Yeah.
One example I give my friends and clients, the first policy loan I ever took, that really opened my eyes. I think I talked a little bit about it last time I was here, but I had to finance a vehicle. My wife got in a car accident and we need a new vehicle. And I happened to have the policy cash values available. It was about a month ago that the policy, we closed it. And so I was going to finance it through my policy. And so I still talk to my friends and people all the time, what are you doing? Why are you going to borrow from this policy and pay interest to this company to do this? And they weren't seeing what I was seeing.
Yeah.
And so I told them, look, okay, here's what's tangible. Here's what you see. Okay. how this turned out. I borrowed some money for this car. I financed it myself, and I paid that loan up pretty quickly. So my interest cost of the company is very low. It's probably less than $1,000. But in that year, I probably made a couple thousand dividends, right? Tangible, that's what you see. I'm still, net ahead there, right? It looks good, but that wasn't the true value. That wasn't really what got me going on that one. See, I had other cash available to purchase that vehicle outright. And, the way we grew up in my family, my circle of friends, we avoided debt, and it's like, why not just pay for it cash and be done with it? Mm-hmm. But that pool of cash, what I was using to do my real estate investments. And so now I freed up that cash to be part of a larger deal. And if I didn't have it, I couldn't participate in that. I had to be cash so we had to move quickly. And so the opportunity cost was great, and that having that policy, having access to that cash on my terms, let me participate in a deal that, I made more than what the car was worth.
Yeah. Did you have any idea that was going to happen when you first started?
No, I had no idea. But it gets even better, right? More intangibles. Okay, that investment I made, it wasn't a cash flowing property. It was more of a development, right? Where we outlaid some money, and in some time in the future, we expect to get a payout on it, right? So that project we thought would take about 9 months or so. So I allocated, 12 months to be conservative. It ended up taking 14 months. Okay. But guess what? Since I didn't have any bank financing on that, and I had a car financed through myself, I wasn't worried about any debt service every month. I wasn't worried about cash flows. That's where investors and entrepreneurs fail, right? They may have the greatest idea in the world, the greatest opportunity, but they're undercapitalized and can't manage short-term cash flows, right? So I could do it on my terms. I knew this was coming in the future, and I knew the delays, with construction and permitting and whatnot. I knew it was coming. I was well positioned to handle it, right? So,
undercapitalized.
Yeah.
Isn't that the problem in the big wide world? Anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was intangible. You can't see in that policy, right? Okay. Tangible. Okay. The spread was a couple $1,000s. Okay. Great. But the real value was what I did outside the policy because I had this policy. I could operate in a different way. The way I see investments is different. The way I see opportunities is much different now. I
love that. And I think that's a natural part of, practicing this idea of becoming your own banker. It heightens your ability. It sharpens your ability to even recognize and quantify a deal.
Right.
I mean, and I'm not just saying that because I think it sounds good. I mean, it happened to me. It's like, oh, okay, well, that's a better deal than I thought, and I have capital and that never hurts. Or that's not it's presented as a deal and it looks like a deal, but when you look under the hood, it's like, yeah, it's not really a deal. And I'm not dependent upon that deal. I don't need that deal.
So in that same example, right, everyone's saying, why are you going to pay this nominal interest rate to the company when you have the cash rate to pay for it? Well, that was my true cost of capital. My true cost was participating in that real estate deal, right?
Opportunity.
So the opportunity cost was huge compared to the little bit I paid for accessing my policy values.
Did the life insurance company ask you what your credit rating was?
No.
Or your debt to income ratio?
No, I just went online. I have requested it, and it was there in a couple of days.
If you did it the old-fashioned way on paper, it's just one piece of paper, maybe two, and it's just a service form.
Right.
Because the loan provision is a contractual right you have. It's just a completely different way to function in business or in the household. I don't care what the third-party lender says or doesn't say or what their requirements are. I don't have to jump through those hoops unless I choose to.
Right.
Right. Okay.
And further that, so I do have some rental properties as well, and I've used this to control those assets as well. And people would ask me, aren't you kind of scared of being a landlord? Don't you, get these phone calls 2 a.m. and nightmare tenants and because of IBC, because I control the financing, the banking function on those properties, well, I avoid that altogether, right? And here's why, Since, again, I'm not beholden to a third-party lender or a bank and whatnot, I control the financing. I control the cash flows. So the properties I have are very desirable. I can get them rented the next day if I wanted to, but I have the ability now to wait to find a really good qualified tenant that doesn't give me those problems. They don't call me at 2 a.m. They're well qualified. They help me maintain my property, and everybody wins. Yeah. They get a nicely well-maintained home to live in, and I get renters that pay on time and help me maintain the property.
So you had the confidence, which gives you like the intestinal fortitude to wait and to properly vet a tenant.
See, people don't realize that I'm perfectly fine waiting months. I'll leave it vacant until I find somebody's qualified because I don't want to deal with those headaches. And I think these stories that other people always hear because they do it the traditional way. They finance and they had to get somebody in there because they're have this cash outflows they got to worry about.
Yeah.
So the first person walks in the door, they rent it out. And
Well, that's a lesson that you learn pretty early in real estate.
Yeah.
Rentals, anyway, is a proper vetting, right, of the tenant. But if you have capital and control your cash flows, you can control that even better or longer, I guess.
Yeah, but some of those intangibles, right? You can't really put a value on that. Okay, the way I operate is differently. It's not just the policy and what it does and shows in your annual statements. It's the way I operate is much different now. Right.
I love it. Well, keep going. Don't stop.
Okay. So yeah, I think that again, going back from transitioning from a consumer to an agent, I think, like you said, being first a practitioner or a consumer before you become an agent was very valuable to me. I've done it. I've lived it. I've seen how to do it, and I can help others implement it, right? And so the questions I had are the same questions they're asking me.
Right.
And so when I show them, I can just show them exactly what I did.
Yeah.
And so that gives a lot of people a lot of confidence, a lot of opens their eyes. And
they hear the same thing you do. Right. It's like when they go into the big wide world, it's all rate of return, skinny base, IUL, or, term and invested difference. I mean, it's, the pushback, the argument, the negative, against the infinite banking concept is real. It's persistent, and there's new terms come up every day, the HELOC, the PLOC, the whole life lock, or the life lock. And
see, that's kind of scary. I think, I see online now a lot of people, like I said, the word's getting out. They're getting a little bit of knowledge with it, but they're enough to be dangerous. And you got a lot of people who don't know or telling other people, advising other people, and like, wow, you just know this is going to end up bad.
Yeah, it is scary if you look at it and think about it and think it through. But, yeah, so I can see that, you get the same questions that you had, and now that you've gone through them and know, you know how to, point out the differences or explain the differences or, show them things that they've not considered because, a nice, great big presentation, left them out and jumped smooth over some of the important things that are intangible.
Yeah.
And,
I have a great wide array of clients, different backgrounds, different things, and they're great. And, I enjoy really working with, I got some really, entrepreneurial, high net worth type people, getting the strategy, help them be more competitive and take the next level. I really enjoy doing that. Yeah. And I got some clients who are just starting out, and they're starting their own businesses right away, and they're young and they're hungry and they're trying to do it right, and they have questions. And, I love that too, helping them kickstart, and it's helped their businesses grow quite a bit. And then I got clients that are, one of the ones I have the most satisfaction from is probably one that it's not even a client yet. We're just still working together.
Yeah.
I got a young couple. They've done what they're supposed to do, right, according to what society tells them to do. They got in a lot of student loan debt trying to get these advanced educations and whatnot. And they came out of school and they couldn't, they're professionals. They make good incomes, but they can't keep up with that debt on their student loans, and it was causing a lot of problems, and they were just defeated. They've been married almost 7-8 years, and they were almost taking a vacation together. You could just tell their face was just, they were living just to service their debt, and they weren't really living for anything else. They kind of in this ho-hum kind of lifestyle, and they're worried. They didn't think about having children and whatnot because they were just worried about trying to get this off their back.
That's crushing.
Yeah, because of that, there's some stuff going on family-wise when they're younger. They had to take on some obligations, so they got behind a little bit, right? I started showing them there's a way out. Man, seeing their face just light up and say, there's light in the tunnel. Hearing them talk was much different, right? Now they're talking about starting a family. They're talking about doing things in life. They're talking about, like Nelson Nash in the book, cogeneration, right? Limiting debt and building wealth at the same time. So that was really eye-opening to them. And they're not there yet. We're building more discipline in their system. Yep. But once they are, that'll be a great, I get a lot of satisfaction knowing that I help somebody get out of that situation.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I learned from our clients. I mean, they're cool people, and they're creative.
Yeah.
And they're inquisitive, but they're also willing to think outside the box and kind of consider different things. But, man, I learned a lot from clients, a lot, and I appreciate you greatly. So, and it is very rewarding.
Yes.
You know, it's very, and you can't put all that on a life insurance illustration.
No, not at all.
It has nothing to do with a life insurance commission. You know, it's like everybody gets paid, right? Call it what you will, you know.
Yeah, like I said, I think that the ones that get the most satisfaction, I get paid probably least amount on probably nothing. Just talking, helping people is you know, that's why I got into it in the first place.
Yeah.
I was talking to people anyways about this.
Exactly. Right. Well, and it does take a lot of time and a lot of effort when you work with people.
Yeah.
You know, it takes time because, you know, everyone's is unique and different, and you know, but then we all have very similar, you know, problems, concerns when it comes to money and cash flows. But it does take time, and but it's worth it. You know, I've found over my career, 30-something years, it's like, you know, I have clients in their 90s, you know, and we still provide a service for them. And, I mean, it's time-consuming, but it's very rewarding. So,
but that's also another thing, you know, we touched on earlier, is education piece, right? It is a lifelong asset. It is something you have to, you know, for younger folks, you know, realize that if you're in your 30s or 20s or, you know, 40s even, you got to plan on managing this for the long term.
Yeah.
And so, you know, like you, I like to provide great service to my clients, but who knows what happens in 20, 30 years from now, right?
Yeah, right.
They need to understand how to be able to use this on their own. And that's the first step in knowing, you know, and getting the system is being able to manage that and handle it yourself if you need to.
Yeah, no question. No question about that. So it's really a lifelong of learning.
Yeah.
You know, and we all learn from experience. And when you start applying and, you know, practicing, I mean, you learn. And the more you learn, then, of course, you know, that's experience. And then the more experience you have, your confidence level goes up.
Yeah. And that's when I, you know, talking to agents and whatnot, I think that's more of a good indicator, right? They're having those kind of discussions versus trying to say the structure versus that structure right off the bat. You know, now, you know, personally, I bought policies for me and my family of all kinds of different structures. Yeah. They make sense for what I was trying to accomplish at that time. Yeah. There's no one size fits all.
Exactly. My conversation with Kayur went a little long, so we're going to stop here. We'll pick it up where we left off next week in part 2. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.
Thank you for joining us on the Banking with Life podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe and click on that little notification bell. Otherwise, join us on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher for weekly content.